Well, make sure you're getting into the business for the right reasons. I would say don't chase the dollar signs. Don't get involved in an opportunity solely because you believe that you're going to make a fortune. If you really don't enjoy doing what you're doing, it's pretty easy to give up when you run into some roadblocks. And
Hey everyone, this is Devin Miller here with another episode of the Inventive Journey. I'm your host, Devin Miller, the serial entrepreneur that's grown several startups into 7- and 8-figure businesses, as well as the founder and CEO of Miller IP Law, where he helps startups and small businesses with their patents and trademarks. If you ever need help with yours, just go to strategymeeting.com, and we're always here to help. Now, today we have another great guest on the podcast, Brian Winch. And to give you just a bit of a background, so Brian in 1981 was 21 and was working a full-time job as a shipping receiver. Realized didn't want to do that forever, did a bit of self-reflection. Also at that point, he was reflecting on his dad that had passed away that was a janitor and did a lot of side hustles. One of the side hustles he did was cleaning up some litter by buildings. Always kind of stuck in his head and wondering and kind of thought, would there be a business there? Started to dive into that, build a business around it, stuck with it. And I think for 40 years, and you'll have to correct me if I'm wrong. It seems like that's what I have, but that's a long time. So that's awesome. And scaled up the business and did it with or built an army of people, has built it into a full business and going from there. So with that much as an introduction, welcome on the podcast, Brian.
it's great to be here, Devin. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So I gave kind of that brief introduction and kind of walk through, but take us back a little bit to graduating from high school, doing your shipping receiver job, and how your journey got started there.
Well, you're right. It has been 40 years since 1981, and time flies when you're having fun, I guess. But back then, one of the first part-time jobs I got while I was in high school was working at this large sporting goods company, and I worked the sales floor and selling sporting equipment. And when I graduated high school, I started working there again on a full-time basis. But they moved me into the shipping receiving department. And I did that for a while, and I didn't mind the job, but I couldn't see myself doing that for the rest of my life. And, seeing as I didn't have a college education, I realized my opportunities for advancement in the company weren't that great. So I started looking at, what could I do for myself? And, I always wanted to kind of work for myself at some point. I remember when I was 5 or 6 years old, instead of just the lemonade stand like a lot of kids tend to have, I instead grabbed some of my younger brother's toys and cleaned them up and put them on a card table in front of the house and started to sell them. And they weren't too happy with me, but I made a few bucks there, and my parents, I think, were kind of impressed, with me showing the initiative at such a young age. I was looking at different opportunities. I barely graduated high school. I didn't have a lot of money in the bank and not a lot of skills other than what I had kind of learned from working in the retail business for a while. And I had that memory of my father, who had recently passed away back then, always doing something on the side to supplement the family income. And yes, he did clean up litter from the outdoors or the outside of a commercial property, a small strip plaza in the neighborhood. And he'd taken me along with him a couple times. And all we did was just walk around the property, the sidewalks, the parking lot, the surrounding landscape, and sweep up any litter material into our litter collection tools. And in just a matter of minutes of the time it took to walk the property, we were done. And, he went to work and I went to school. And so I thought, let me see if there is a market for this business, a full-time, I could turn this into a full-time business. And that's how it all got started. And I at first it was just something on the side, and it was learning from the school of hard knocks. I had to learn all the things you need to do to start a business and to market the business and how to deal with customers, provide customer service. And once I got comfortable, I was doing very well as a one-man operation, but decided to scale it up to, where we hired people.
But one question, now let me just dive into just one question before you scale it. So I get you have the idea and said, okay, I can't see, and I think a lot of people have been in there where hey, I don't mind my job. It's not a bad job. It's not one where I can see myself doing it in 40 years or those type of things, or I can't see it being a long time job. And so you start to say, now what can I do alternatively or different? And so, I definitely commend, that, and not only to saying, hey, I don't want to do this job, but actually taking the steps to do that. Now, as you say, okay, first of all, figuring out you didn't want to do that, and then figuring out, hey, here's one thing that my dad did that I think was a good idea, that you see if there may be a business there. How did you go from that to actually building the business? Meaning, did you walk around to the strip malls and ask them if they wanted to be your clientele? Did you send out, in those days, the little postcards in the mail and say, hey, here's my business? Or kind of how did you go from that being an idea to actually build or starting to build a business around it?
Okay, no, that's great. I recognized when I got started that my clients, my prospects, were property management companies and not the individual businesses or stores that make up every commercial property. So, and my dad, I remember him talking to his client a few times, and I remember seeing the business card, and it was a property management company. So, that much I knew, and then I got from my dad. So what I started to do to test the market was just, the internet of the day was the big fat yellow pages telephone directory. And I started thumbing through real estate management or property management or, property development companies, and just started making cold calls and refining my elevator pitch. And I guess 5 or 6 calls in, the prospect indicated to me that, oh, this was a very opportune time for me to be actually phoning it, because they were just having this discussion in the office that they weren't happy with the contractor they were using to clean up their property, and would I be interested? And so I went out and I took a look at the properties and developed what I thought was a fair price, and got back to them, and they accepted my proposals, and it all started with those first 3 properties.
Hmm. So now so you go and you do that, and you use the yellow pages, and just out of pure curiosity, how what was the success rate of starting to look things up and go to them from the yellow pages, whether it's giving a call or go visit their property? Was it a pretty high batting rate, or did you have to go to a lot of properties to find a few clients, or kind of how did that work out?
Well, I mean, every city, I mean, this is a niche service. So every city only has so many property management companies.
Hmm.
It's not like, you're selling pizzas and you've got a huge, everyone that lives in that, vicinity of your store or whatever. So, but the great thing about your prospects, other than the fact that you know who they are, is they all manage a multitude number of properties. Nobody gets into that business to manage one property.
Hmm.
They have a whole portfolio, could be 3, 7, 12, 20, 27 properties. So, once you get your foot in the door with one and they try you out and they like your service at 1 or 2 properties they try out, chances are really good, if they like you and you provide great customer service, that they're going to send more work your way. So you
Hmm.
really only need a handful of clients, depending on how large you want to get your business. So basically, I was kind of taking this low and slow and learning the business as I was going along, and gradually adding more and more buildings and clients to my portfolio, to the point where I couldn't handle anymore just by myself. And so I had to make that decision. Am I going to start turning down business,
Hmm.
or am I going to, get people to work for me, and then continue to grow? And we did that. And as I gained more comfort in managing the business and operating it that way, we kept adding more and more people. And so we scaled this business from a side hustle to one that initially brought me, about $100,000 a year, just as a simple one-man operation, uh, and to one that now where we're billing out, sometimes up to 700, just over $700,000 a year. And that's
Hmm.
only litter cleaning. We don't do any other cleaning, janitorial, landscaping, snow removal, any other services, other than just what we specialize in.
Now let me dive into just one other thing that I think is interesting and I had a question on, which is, looking back, it always sounds easy. Oh yeah, we built it into a huge company, and we had to hire people on and everything else. At the beginning, it is a lot of times it takes a lot more time and effort and everything else that we oftentimes people don't realize. So as you're saying, hey, first, give us a bit of time period of how long did it take? How long was it a side hustle? How long did you get it to grow to where it was enough to replace your income? You moved over there full time. How long was it till you brought on employees, and kind of how was that progression? How long did it take place?
Okay, well, when I started this out, I was working, my job still, and I had the opportunity. I think that's a great way to start any business is on the side or as a side hustle.
Hmm.
So, you still have your full-time job to pay the bills, if you will. And so I did that for only about 3 or 4 months, and as on the side part-time, but I was making more money working part-time for myself than I was full-time as a shipper receiver. So I did the math and I thought, well, you know what, this is crazy. There's only so many hours in the day, so I left my job and devoted my time full time to my business and continued to grow it so that I was working full time, and I was content doing that actually, because the whole reason I went into business was not to create some huge, massive, huge empire, but it was to be independent and be able to do something I enjoyed doing and working for myself. But as I mentioned earlier, I got to that point where I either had to grow or start turning down business, and I
Hmm.
just didn't want to turn down business. So then we brought people in, maybe one or two people to work part time or full time, and over the years we continued to grow and we kept adding more people to working for us, whether it be part time, full time, and the business has always been growing at a pace that we are comfortable with, and and it was a learning curve along the way as well. I mean, I had to learn how to market it, and a good elevator pitch. When you get on the phone, you don't want to waste your prospect's time, and you want to sell the benefit of your service, or in our case, how we can give our clients a cleaner, litter-free property for less money. And we start the conversation. We'd like to send you some more information and show you and let you know how we can do that. And so it's not a matter of where I even expected when I first started out that I would get on the phone and bang, make a sale. But I had no sales skills. And I'd like to tell people a lot of times people say, well, I can't sell anything. But if you look at your past life experience, when you have to be a salesman, you definitely can be. I mean, when you were a kid and you wanted to raise your allowance, you went to your parents, you would sell them on the fact that why you needed that raise and allowance. And then when you got older, when you were dating, you had to sell yourself. When you were in your first job interview, you had to be presentable, and you learned different tactics or skills to make yourself an attractive candidate. And you had to sell yourself. So
And I think on that note, oftentimes we make excuses as to why we can't sell ourselves, right? In the sense that we'll say, oh, I'm not a natural people person, or I don't know how to sell, or I feel bashful about asking it. I think a lot of times the best way to get over that and to become a salesperson, if you think you're not, is just to get out and sell it. Go hit the pavement, hear what they have to say. And you may bomb your first few sales pitches. You may absolutely walk away and they may laugh you out of the door, but you're going to figure out what makes sense, what doesn't make sense, what works, what doesn't work, how to interact with people, what they're looking for, what to charge for it, and everything else. And a lot of times the best way is just to get out and do it and overcome that fear rather than using it as an excuse to never go out and build anything.
exactly, and that's a good point. And I learned two things early on is, you have to kind of plan your day, and you have to kind of, plan your week and say, I'm going to do or make these many calls today and follow up in the next week, etc. And just stick with it and just get it out of the way and do it. And it really isn't that difficult. I mean, whether it's my service or whatever else, if you believe in your product or service, it's not difficult to sell it, because you're not selling really a product, if you will, if this makes any sense to somebody. You're selling what the benefit is and how your prospect is going to benefit from doing business with you. And so it's a win-win situation. And I think if you truly believe in what you're in business for, it's not a hard sell. You want to explain to the world or your prospects, how you can, give them a better property, a better, cleaner property, or whatever the case is, whatever the product or service that you're
Mhm.
you're selling.
No, and I think that I like that. And I think that if you really believe in your product, if you're a founder, co-founder, you started the bit. If you believe in your product, it's really not hard to sell, in the sense that you're not really selling people. You're just telling how awesome you think your product is. You should love your product, and you just walk in and say, here's what we do, and here's why it's great, and here's why I love it and excited. In your case, and if I'm making it up, hey, we love to, don't you love to have a nice, clean building where people come in and you can be proud of it, and it's not, not run down, doesn't look, look like trashy, but looks great. And that's even what I found, like on the law side. One of the things that I do, and it's not by any means groundbreaking, but I send emails where I record a quick video and just interact with people, because a lot of our clients don't come into our office. And as simple as that is, it's something that so many people don't do just because they're afraid to put themselves out there or sell it. And yet, if you're just willing to take that little extra mile, do that extra little bit of sales, and just tell people what you're, be that human and personable, then it makes such a big difference. So I like how you approached it.
Well, and that's right, 100%. And I just want to point out that I'm an introvert. I'm not an extrovert. I'm not a person where a lot of people think, a natural born salesperson, and the person just talks and talks. I'm not that person at all. But when it comes to talking about my service, I get excited about it, or my product. I mean, I wrote a book which tells people how to start and operate this business in their city, for example, and I get excited talking about that. And it's not difficult to explain the benefits of that product or service, whether if you're an introvert or extrovert. It comes natural if you really enjoy what you're doing.
Exactly. So now kind of taking us to the future, or to the present, sorry. So, you do this, and you do it for, I think it was around 40 years, and you grow the business, you bring people on, you do all these different things. Now, are you still doing it today? Did you sell it off? Did you wrap it down? Did you retire? Did you shift to something else? Kind of where did as you built this business for 40 years, sounds like it's successful, like it grew, you brought people on, kind of where did that lead you to today?
Okay, well, I'm still doing it because I still enjoy doing the work. But obviously, I've been doing it for such a long time, and I have other people working for us. I've scaled back the number of hours that I do the actual cleaning. But I realized that this was a great opportunity for a lot of people out there across the country that maybe were in my shoes. When I was 21 years of age. And they'd be looking at this opportunity. Maybe this is an offline opportunity. You still have to have some online skills when in terms of marketing, etc. But it really is a simple business. And if people are looking for an opportunity like that, I thought, what, why not write a book? I looked at franchising. This is too simple to franchise, in my opinion. People are not going to want to pay ongoing royalty fees, franchise fees. So I wrote a book very similar to a franchise operations manual. It comes with my free support. And I basically, take you by the hand and show you, look at it. This is how this business operates, and this is what you should do. And if you need free support, it's my way of giving back to an opportunity that's provided so well for myself. And I really enjoy helping people get started and growing the business. And everyone's motivation is different. Some people just like to do it on the side, make a few extra $1,000 a month. Some people eventually want to work for themselves. They want to leave the corporate world or leave their shipping receiving job, if like similar to me, and do this full time and feel good about the service they're providing in their community.
No, and I like how, you say, oh, I can and a lot of people say, let's franchise on that. But you're saying, hey, this is simple. People could do it, rather than excising a large franchise fee, which they're going to come to regret, or it's going to create an adversarial relationship. Let's give away the information, so to speak, for free, or for a book, not completely free, but give them the tools and ability to go do it themselves, because, hey, there's plenty of opportunities. There's a large market for it. Definitely think it makes sense. And I think it's a great way for people that are looking to make that transition to utilize it. So that kind of now shifts to I think a good transition to, to the last two questions that we have, because where we're now kind of in the present, as to shift to the questions I ask at the end of each podcast. So we'll jump to those now, which are, the first question I always ask is, so along your journey, what was the worst business decision you ever made, and what did you learn from it?
Well, about 4 years in, my clients, were so happy with the service I was doing, cleaning their parking lots. I guess now looking back, it was pretty natural for them to come to me and say, well, what other services do you provide? And rather than stopping there, they would go on and start telling me, this is what I'd like you to do for me. I have a little piece of grass on the side of the building. Can you cut that for me? Oh, and I have a little sidewalk in front of the building. It's not much. Can you clear the snow for me? And we were afraid to say no. And, there's a lot of conventional wisdom out there that dictates or tells people that the customer's always right, and you always have to give them what they need, etc. And so we did that for maybe a half dozen years, and we hated it. We absolutely did not enjoy doing any of that work. And so we made the conscious decision of getting out of that. And to our surprise, we only lost maybe one or two clients. The rest of us had no problem. They said, well, you know what, we can find somebody else to do that. But we definitely want to keep you guys on, to maintain our properties litter free, because we realize that's what you do best. And that's great, not an issue. And so we learned, to set boundaries, and it's all right to say no sometimes to your prospects or your customers, and just say, no, this is what we do, and we specialize in it, and we guarantee you we will do it better than anybody else.
No, and I think that's a good point, because there, and I call it the contractor's dilemma, but I have the exact same thing in IP law. I get anytime you get in the service industry, because and why I call it contractors, you always have, if you ever built a home or done any construction, they're always taking on more work than they can realistically do, and they're always running behind schedule. They're always having delays, but it's the idea of, I don't want to, if work slows down, and they've been through those feasts and famines, and when you hit the famines, you're always saying, well, I don't want to go through a famine again, so I'm always going to take on more work that I can reasonably do. And that includes taking on work you don't necessarily want to do, because you don't want to go through those famines. And so then you can start to get into things where, just to your point, oh, I don't love this, or I'm always behind, or I'm delayed, or I'm not doing any number of things, because you're taking on jobs that you don't want to do, or that you don't are passionate about. And I think, to your point, it's much better to, hey, we've got a good business, we focused in, let's niche down, do a great job there, and expand the business there, as opposed to taking on the jobs that you're saying, hey, I just hate this, or I don't like it. Yeah. This isn't where we do our best. So I love that as both the mistakes we make, because I think it happens all the time, especially in service industries, but it's a great thing to learn from.
Yeah.
So now we'll jump to the second question, which is, if you're talking to someone that's just starting out in a startup or small business, what'd be the one piece of advice you'd give them?
Well, make sure you're getting into the business for the right reasons. I would say, don't chase the dollar signs. Don't get involved in an opportunity solely because you believe that you're going to make a fortune. If you really don't enjoy doing what you're doing, it's pretty easy to give up when you run into some roadblocks. And you can make excuses. Well, you know what, it's not worth it. And you make excuses and try to justify, giving up on an opportunity if you really don't enjoy doing what you're doing. And in my case, I started out and I enjoyed working outdoors. I enjoyed, a different routine kind of every day. I enjoyed, feeling good, seeing the results of my work, and leaving the neighborhood, a community, a cleaner, more litter-free environment. And so when I would run into the roadblocks, and inevitably, when you're running a business, you're going to have good days and bad days, but it gives you the power to struggle through and find solutions. And you know what? I'm not saying to people that, you have to find the solutions yourself and just work for yourself. I mean, you learn to delegate. At some point you can bring in a mentor, or you reach out to a law firm, and you have the law firm, take care of the legal aspects of your business. And, we reach out to an accounting firm or a bookkeeper, and et cetera, et cetera. And you develop over the number of years, a stable of people that you can call upon for that specialized type of assistance. And so you're always growing. So that's the great thing about starting, I think, a business, in my case, as a side hustle. You develop those skills, and at some point, if you just keep the business as a side hustle, and you're always working your full-time job, you're going to be a better employee too, I think, from having a side hustle.
No, I like all that. And I think, the biggest thing that you hit on, I think we always tend to make excuses. And I think I've mentioned it or chatted on the podcast a bit before, but, there's always something in our life that we can give it an excuse for not getting started or not trying. And it can be oh, I just graduated from school. I got to get it. I got to get a degree. Or if I got a degree, well, I got to get some experience with the big business first before I can do it. And then once you do it, you're like, well, I started to have a family. I had like a wife or a kid or anything else. And now I can't, it's not, I can't put that at risk. And so then you wait a little bit longer and then you get farther and you're like, well, I've been working for the business so long. Now I don't want to lose my pension, or I don't want to lose my retirement or anything else. And then, oh, I don't want to, take that risk. And then you get old enough, and when you could do it, and you say, okay, now I'm too old. I don't know if I have the, and you always can make excuses, whatever they are, for reasons why you shouldn't get started, why it doesn't make sense, why the timing isn't right. And if you're forever making those excuses, and you're never going to get to it, and you're going to look back and maybe it was a horrible business and horrible idea, and it wouldn't have worked out. But if you never tried, you won't have that, you'll never know, and you'll always look back and regret it. And a lot of times, even if you fail the first time, you can pivot, you can adjust, you can learn and do better from it.
Exactly. And you're going to have failures. I mean, I've been in business for 40 years, but that doesn't mean I haven't failed. And so you have to have the positive outlook on things. Failures are basically just learning experiences, or they're lessons, and you learn what didn't work, and you try not to make the same mistake, twice.
No, I completely agree with that. So now, as we wrap up, if people they want to find out, you have your book out, you had your business, you're still running the business. If they want to be a customer, or their client, their property management that wants to use your services, they want to start their own business, they want to be an employee of yours, they want to be an investor, they want to buy your book, they want to be your next best friend, any or all of the above, what's the best way to reach out to you, find out more?
Well, if you want to learn more about the book, Clean Lots, America's Simplest Business, I suggest you go to my website, cleanlots.com. And there is a brief video on the homepage, about 3 minutes long, that shows me actually cleaning a property and how simple it really is. I like to tell people it's almost as easy as going for a walk, if you use the right equipment, and that's the key. And there's also a free a report that you can download if you want, if you're not sure about the opportunity, and it kind of guides you into finding the right opportunity for yourself, because everyone's different, everyone has their wants and needs. But yeah, cleanlots.com is the best place to check me out.
All right. Well, I definitely encourage. I think it's a cool business, and I think it's one where a lot of people. It's one that's, to your point, it's a simple idea, but a lot of people that could do it. They would enjoy it. It would give them an opportunity to do something different, and would be rewarding. And whether it's, I could see everything from somebody in high school all the way up to a full-time job to building a multi-employee company. I think it's just a cool idea. So I definitely encourage people to check it out and find out more. Well, thank you again for coming on the podcast. It's been fun. It's been a pleasure. Now, for all of you that are listeners, if you have your own journey to tell and you'd like to be a guest on the podcast, feel free to go to inventiveguest.com, apply to be on the show. 2 more things as listeners. 1, click subscribe in your podcast player so you know when all of our awesome episodes come out. And 2, leave us a review so new people can find out about our awesome episodes. Last but not least, if you ever need help with patents, trademarks, anything else, feel free to go to strategymeeting.com. We're always here to help. Thank you again, Brian, for coming on. It's been it's been a pleasure, and wish the next leg of your journey even better than the last.
Thanks, Devin.